My future daughter-in-law smiled, slid the papers across the table toward me, and said, "It's just a formality." Everyone around that table had already signed. They forgot I had spent 30 years reading contracts for a living. I am going to tell you what was printed on page 4, why I almost signed it anyway, and what reading every word of it cost me with my own son. The easy part of this story is the document. The hard part is that nobody at that table thought I would actually read it, including the boy I raised. My name is Diane. I am 64 years old. I worked for 31 years in the contracts department of a freight company. That is a fancy way of saying I read the fine print other people were too busy or too trusting to read. It was not glamorous work. People made jokes about it at parties, the woman who reads the boring parts. My husband Harold never joked about it. Harold used to say the same thing every time we signed anything in our whole marriage. The mortgage, the car, the will. He would put on his glasses, turn to the last pages, and say, "They always hide the important part on page 4, Diane." Page 4, where they think you have already stopped reading. He has been gone 2 years now. I lost him to his heart on an ordinary Tuesday, and the house has been very quiet since. Aaron is my only child. He is 31. He is all the family I have left in this world, and I want you to hold on to that because it explains why I almost signed a paper that would have erased me. When the only person you have left asks you to make something easy for him, easy starts to look a lot like love. I should tell you what the house means because the whole story turns on it. You cannot feel page 4 without it. Harold and I bought it in 1984 with a down payment we saved by not taking a honeymoon. He painted every room in it twice over the years, badly. He was a terrible painter. There are still drips on the baseboards in the hall that I have never sanded off, because they are his. We brought Aaron home from the hospital to that house. I learned I was a widow in the front room of that house, sitting in Harold's chair because I could not make myself sit anywhere else. It is not an asset. The word asset is what the document called it, and the word asset is the first lie on the page, before you even get to page 4. It is not an asset. It is the last thing I have that still has his fingerprints on it. The first year after I lost Harold, I learned what quiet really is. Not peaceful quiet. The other kind, where you hear the refrigerator click on and realize you have not spoken out loud to another person in 2 days. Aaron called. He is a good boy, he called. But he had his own life and his own grief, and he handled mine by not talking about it, which is how his father's family handled everything. So when Brittany came into his life and the house filled up again with someone cooking and laughing, I was not just happy for my son. I was hungry for it. I want to be honest about that because it is the reason my hand was already moving toward that pen before I made myself stop. A lonely woman will sign almost anything to keep the warm thing from leaving the room. Aaron met Brittany about 2 years ago, around the time I lost Harold, and I will be honest with you, I liked her at first. I want to be fair to her through this whole thing, because she is not a villain. The moment I let you think she was, you will stop understanding what actually happened. Brittany is 29. She is polished and careful, and she remembers your birthday, and she brings the good wine. The first time Aaron brought her to dinner, she cleared the table without being asked and washed every dish. I stood in my kitchen doorway watching this pretty young woman scrub my pans, and I thought, he found a good one. I thought I was lucky. There was one small thing that night I did not understand until much later. We were having coffee, and Brittany said something about how, once they were married, they would need to update the house paperwork. I said, "What house paperwork?" And she smiled and waved her hand and said, "Oh, just everything. You know how it is," and changed the subject. I did not know how it was. I let it go. You let a lot of things go when you are happy someone is taking care of your son. The engagement happened fast. That did not bother me. Harold and I got engaged after 4 months and stayed married 38 years. What started to bother me slowly was the planning. Every decision about the wedding came with a second conversation about something that was not the wedding. Insurance. Accounts. Whose name went where? Brittany ran all of it, gently, like a woman organizing a charity drive, and Aaron just nodded along, relieved that someone else was handling the parts he hated. He has always been like that. He would rather agree than read. He got that from me, actually, the wanting peace. He did not get the reading from me. I used to think he would. The dinner where it happened was supposed to be a celebration. Brittany set it up at my house, said she wanted to cook for everyone, and she brought her mother, Sharon, whom I had met only twice. Sharon is 58, sharp, well-dressed, with a way of watching a room like she is counting the exits. There was something tightly wound about her that I did not understand that night, and understand completely now. After the plates were cleared, Brittany brought out a folder. She had copies for everyone. She passed them around the table like party favors, smiling, and she said, "So, this is just a family agreement. My mom helped me put it together. It protects everybody. It makes sure nobody ever has to fight about anything later." Aaron already had his copy open. He clicked a pen and signed the back page without reading a single line of it. He did not even slow down. He signed it the way you sign a receipt. Then he slid it to the center of the table and looked at me. And Brittany looked at me. And Sharon looked at me. Everyone was smiling, and the pen was already moving toward my side of the table. "It's just a formality," Brittany said. "Everyone in the family signs one. And here is the part one needs you to sit with, because it is the whole thing." I almost signed it. My hand was already moving. Every person I loved who was still alive was sitting at that table wanting me to. The document was already signed by my son. And the easiest thing in the entire world, the thing that would have kept everyone smiling, was to click that pen and be the agreeable mother who did not make it weird. I had the pen in my hand. And then I heard Harold, plain as anything, the way you hear someone who shared your bed for 38 years. "Page 4, Diane." So I said, "Give me a minute," and I started reading. You would have thought I had stood up and turned over the table. The temperature of the room changed. Brittany's smile stayed on her face, but stopped reaching her eyes. Aaron said, "Mom, you don't have to read the whole thing, it's standard." I said, "I read everything, sweetheart, you know that," and I kept going. Page 1 was nothing. Definitions, names, the kind of throat clearing every document does. Page 2 was about the wedding costs, fine. Page 3 started talking about combined households and shared responsibilities, and the language started to thicken, the way water thickens right before it turns to ice. And then I got to page 4. Page 4 had a heading on it, and the heading was friendly. Family Continuity Clause. That is what it was called. Not seizure, not transfer, not surrender. Family Continuity Clause, like something that would help a family stay close. I almost read past it because the name was designed so you would read past it. I made myself read it twice. And the second time, the floor dropped out from under me very quietly, the way it does when no one else in the room knows it has dropped. It did not announce itself. That is what good ones never do. The first sentence was about how families sometimes face hardship and how loving families plan ahead so that no one is ever left vulnerable. Who could argue with that? The second sentence introduced a structure, soft and reasonable, called a coordinated family trust. The third sentence, the one that mattered, the one buried in a paragraph about cooperation and mutual care, was where my house and my savings quietly walked through a door, and the door locked behind them. You had to read it 3 times to see that the hand turning the key was not mine. They build them this way on purpose. They surround the one sentence that takes everything with 4 sentences that sound like a greeting card. Because a person reading quickly, a kind person, a person who loves the people at the table, slides right over the one sentence on a cushion of the other 4. What the clause said, underneath the soft words, was this: in the event of certain circumstances, and the circumstances were vague enough to mean almost anything, my home and my savings would be folded into something the document called a coordinated family trust for everyone's protection. And the person with authority over that trust, the person who would decide what happened to my house and my money, was not me. It was, in plain reading, Brittany and her appointed representative, her mother. The house Harold and I paid off over 30 years. The savings I read fine print for 3 decades to build. On page 4, under a heading about keeping families close, I was signing it into the hands of a young woman I had met 2 years ago and a woman I had met twice. I did not make a scene. I want you to know that because a scene is what they were braced for, and a scene would have let them call me the difficult one. I closed the folder. I set it down. I said, "This is a serious document, and I would like to take it home and read it properly before I sign anything." And the table came apart. Sharon said, "It's completely standard, Diane. Everyone protects their assets now." Brittany said, "It's really just a precaution. It's not personal." And Aaron, my son, my only family left on this earth, looked at me with something I had never seen on his face before, something between embarrassment and pleading, and he said, "Mom, please, don't make this weird. Don't make this weird." I had read the document. I knew exactly what was on page 4. And the only thing my son was afraid of was that I would be awkward about signing my house away. That hurt worse than the clause did. The clause was just paper. The look on his face was my boy choosing the easy thing over the careful thing, and not even knowing there was a difference. I took the folder home. I did not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table where Harold used to put on his glasses, and I read all 6 pages 4 more times, and the more I read, the worse page 4 got, because it was good. Whoever wrote it was good. It was written so that a reasonable person, a trusting person, a person who loved the people at the table, would sign it and feel kind doing so. Aaron called me at 7 the next morning, before I had even made coffee, which told me everything about how the dinner had gone after I left. He did not say good morning. He said, "Mom, you really hurt Brittany last night." I held the phone and I looked at page 4 sitting on my table in the gray early light, and I said, "Aaron, did you read it?" There was a pause. He said, "Read what?" I said, "The agreement. The thing you signed. Did you read it before you signed it?" And he said, "I didn't need to read it. Brittany explained it. It's to protect all of us." And I understood in that moment that my son did not know what he had signed any more than I had before I sat down with it. He was defending a document he had never read because the woman he loved had smiled when she handed it to him. I did not tell him what was on page 4. Not yet. He would not have believed it from me over the phone. He would have thought I was the bitter mother who could not let go. Some truths you cannot say. You have to let a person read them for himself. The next morning, I drove to see my friend Ruth. Ruth is 66. We taught Sunday school together for 15 years before I lost Harold, and she is the one person who never once told me to cheer up after he passed, which is why I trust her. I sat in her kitchen and I told her everything. The dinner, the folder, page 4, Aaron's face. Ruth did not gasp. She got very still, and she got up, and she poured us both more coffee, and when she sat back down she said, "Can I tell you what happened to me?" And I said yes. And she told me a story I had known her 15 years and never heard. When Ruth's son got married, his wife brought her a paper too. Not as aggressive as mine. Softer. "Just sign here, it makes things simpler for the family." And Ruth, who did not want to be the kind of mother-in-law everyone complains about, who wanted so badly to be welcomed and easy and loved, signed it without reading it. "I trusted the smile," she said. That was my whole mistake. I trusted the smile instead of the paper. And 2 years later, when there was a disagreement, that paper turned out to mean she had signed away her say in the house she had helped pay for. Within a year, she was seeing her grandchildren twice a year, on a schedule, in a living room that had her own furniture in it. "I signed to keep the peace," Ruth told me. "And the peace cost me everything I was trying to keep." She looked at me across her kitchen table and she said, "You already read it. So you're ahead of where I was. The question is not whether you understand the paper. The question is whether you are willing to be the difficult one to keep your life. Because they are counting on you not being willing." I drove home the long way. I needed to think, and I needed to be honest with myself about something. If I was going to fight this, I had to know I was fighting the right person. I kept coming back to Brittany's face when I closed that folder. It was not triumph. It was fear. And fear is not the face of someone running a con. Fear is the face of someone protecting herself from something. So I did a thing I am not proud of and would do again. I asked Aaron, casually, on the phone about Brittany's family. I had never really heard about her parents. And the story came out slowly over a couple of calls, because Aaron himself only half knew it. Brittany's father and mother had a marriage that ended in a way that left scorched earth. There was a long, ugly fight over money and a house. Brittany was a teenager in the middle of it. She watched her mother, Sharon, who had not worked in 20 years, who had trusted a handshake and a signature, end up with almost nothing, while lawyers carved up everything that had been her childhood. Brittany grew up being told one thing over and over by a frightened, bitter, loving mother. Protect yourself on paper, or you will end up like me. That clause was not greed. I want to be very clear, because it would be easier if it were greed. That clause was a teenage girl who watched her mother lose everything, grown up and terrified it would happen to her, building a wall so high she could not see that there was a real person standing on the other side of it. Me. The wall was aimed at her own father's ghost. I just happened to be standing where it landed. Understanding that did not make page 4 go away. A wall built out of fear will still bury you if it falls on you. But it changed what I was going to do. You fight a con artist one way, and you reach a frightened person another way. I had raised a son and taught Sunday school for 15 years, and I know the difference between someone who is bad and someone who is scared. I needed to be sure about the document though, sure in a way that could not be argued with. So I went to see Walter. Walter was Harold's closest friend for 40 years. He spent his career as a notary and a paralegal, the man everyone in our church brought their papers to before they signed anything. He is retired now, and his eyes are not what they were, but his mind is a steel trap. I brought him the folder, and he read page 4 with a magnifying glass, slowly, his lips moving, and when he finished he set the glass down and he was quiet for a long moment. Then he got up, and he went to a cabinet, and he took out a folder of his own. It was old, the cardboard soft and furred at the corners, and he set it on the table between us and put his hand flat on top of it, like you would put your hand on a Bible. This folder cost me my marriage, Walter said. I did not say anything. I have learned that when a person finally decides to say a thing they have carried for 40 years, you do not help them. You just let them. When I was young, he said, before I knew anything, I signed a business agreement with a man I trusted. My wife asked me to read it first. I told her not to worry about it. He patted the old folder. It was all in here, what he was really doing, and I never read past the second page. I lost the business and most of what we had, and my wife never fully looked at me the same way again, because I had chosen a man's handshake over her worry. We did not make it. He looked up at me. I read every word of every page for the next 40 years, Diane. Every word. It was the only apology I had. He opened the old folder then, just for a second, and turned it so I could see. The pages inside were yellow and soft. He had kept it all these years, the document that took everything. I asked him why a man would keep the thing that ruined him, and he said, because every time my hand gets lazy on a page, I take it out and I read what lazy costs. He closed it. Harold knew about this folder, he said. He was the only one I ever showed it to, back when it happened. You know what your husband said to me? He said, Walter, from now on you read page 4 first and the rest after, because the man who is trying to take from you knows you will be tired by the time you get to the back. He looked at me. That is where your Harold got that saying you mentioned. He got it from my worst day. I never knew that. I had heard Harold say page 4, Diane for 38 years, and never knew he was quoting his best friend's ruin, carrying Walter's lesson into our marriage so it would protect us. The ones we lose keep working for you if you let them. That is not a sad thing. It is the least sad thing I know. Then he tapped my folder, the one from Brittany. This clause on page 4 is real, he said. It is enforceable. It is also written by someone who wanted it to slide past exactly the kind of person it was handed to. A kind person. A trusting person. Whoever drafted this knew that the nicer the name on the clause, the fewer people read it. Family continuity. He almost laughed, but it was not a happy sound. They named the trap after the thing the victim wants most. So now I knew two things for certain. I knew the document would do exactly what I feared. And I knew the person who built it was not a villain, but a wall of inherited fear, with my son standing on top of it, smiling, holding a pen. There was one more thing I had to find out, and it turned out to be the thing that changed how the whole night ended. I went to see Brittany. Just her. I asked her to coffee, the two of us, and to her credit she came, even though she was nervous, even though she must have known it would be hard. We sat down, and I did not ambush her. I asked her, gently, to walk me through page 4, to explain it to me in her own words. And she could not. She started to with the soft phrases. It protects the family. It keeps things simple. And I said, no, the actual clause, the trust, who controls it. Walk me through the mechanism. And Brittany stopped. And her face did something terrible and human. She did not know. She had not read it either. Her mother had drafted it with a lawyer, had handed it to her, had told her this is what protects you. This is what keeps you from ending up like me. And Brittany had passed it around my dinner table with a smile, believing she understood it, the same way Aaron signed it believing he did not need to. Two young people, handing a loaded document back and forth, and not one of them had read page 4. The only two people in this entire story who actually read it were me and a frightened woman named Sharon who wrote it. I looked at this 29-year-old girl across the coffee shop table, and I was not angry anymore. I was something heavier than angry, because I finally understood that she was about to do to herself exactly what had been done to her. She was about to build her marriage on a wall she could not see over, handed to her by a mother who loved her, and was teaching her the only lesson fear knows how to teach. I said, Brittany, I am not going to sign this. And before her face could close, I said, but I am not angry at you. I want to show you something. And I asked her to come to my house that weekend, and to bring Aaron, and to bring her mother. All of them. I said I would explain everything once, with everyone there, and then it would be done. They came on Saturday. I had the folder on the kitchen table, Harold's table. I did not raise my voice. I have learned that the quiet way of saying a hard thing lands deeper than the loud way. I opened to page 4 and I read the family continuity clause out loud, slowly, and then I translated it, sentence by sentence, into plain words. This sentence means my house. This sentence means my savings. This sentence means I would have no say. This sentence means the two of you would control everything I spent 40 years building, with a man who is not here to defend it. The room was silent. Aaron had gone pale. He reached over and took the folder and read page 4 himself, finally, for the first time, his eyes moving slowly, and I watched my son understand what he had signed without reading. He put it down and he could not look at me. You really thought, he started and could not finish. You really thought we were trying to take something from you. I did not know what you were trying to do, I told him. That is exactly why I read it. And then Sharon spoke, and this is the part one did not expect. I had braced for her to defend it, to call me dramatic, to circle the wagons. Instead, she sat very straight, and her voice when it came out was not sharp at all. It was old. I watched my mother sign something she trusted, Sharon said. She trusted my father, and she trusted his lawyer, and she did not read it. And when it was over, she had nothing, and I buried her in a borrowed dress, because there was not enough left for one of her own. She looked at her daughter, at Brittany. I taught you to protect yourself, because I could not protect her. She looked at me. I did not think about the woman on the other side of the paper. I am sorry. I think I have been writing that same clause my whole life, and handing it to everyone I love. Nobody said anything for a while. Some silences are the realest thing in a room. I would like to tell you that everyone hugged, and the wedding was beautiful, and we all became one happy family. That is not what happened, and I promised you the truth the whole way through. Sharon and I are not close. Some part of her still keeps her hand on the exits, and I do not think a single conversation undoes 40 years of being afraid. We are polite. That is what we have, and I have stopped needing it to be more. Aaron and I are careful with each other now, in a way we were not before. Something cracked at that dinner table that has not fully closed, because he saw himself choose the easy thing, and his son does not forget his mother watching him do that. We talk every week. We are working our way back. It is slower than I want, and that is honest. He came by the house alone a few weeks after, which he almost never does. He stood in the hall a while, near the baseboards with his father's paint drips on them, and he said, "I keep thinking about how fast I signed it." He said, "I didn't even turn the pages. I just wanted everyone to be okay with each other so bad that I signed away your house without reading one word. And I would have let it happen, and I would have told myself I was keeping the peace." He looked at me. "That is what scares me. Not that Brittany made a mistake. That I would have let it happen to you and called it love." I told him the truest thing I know. Wanting peace is not a sin. It is just not the same as protecting people. The day you learn the difference is the day you actually grow up. Some men learn it at 31 and some never do, and I was proud of him for learning it at all. We did not hug. We are not a hugging family. His father's family never was. But he washed the coffee cups before he left, slowly, the way Brittany did the first night, and I stood in the kitchen doorway and watched my son clean my kitchen. It was as close to "I am sorry and I love you" as he has in him, and I took it, and it was enough. But Brittany is the one who surprised me, and she is the reason I can tell this story without bitterness. Because the weekend before the wedding, she drove to my house alone, and she knocked on my door, and she was holding a folder. A new one. She did not say much. She has never been a woman of many words when the words actually matter. She held it out to me, and she said, "Diane, would you read this one first?" And I sat down at Harold's table, and I put on my own glasses now, and I turned the pages. And when I got to page 4, the family continuity clause was gone. Not softened. Gone. The whole page had been struck through, every dangerous line crossed out in pen, and underneath, in her own handwriting, she had written a single sentence. "Diane keeps what Diane built." And below that, where there was space, she had added one more line, smaller, like she was not sure she was allowed to write it. "Thank you for reading it." My mother never had anyone who would. I read every word of that new document, twice, the way Harold taught me, the way I taught no one and wish I had taught my son. And page 4 stayed empty the whole way through. And only then, with everyone I had left in the world finally standing on the same side of the wall as me, did I pick up the pen. I think about what Harold used to say, about how they always hide the important thing on page 4, where they think you have already stopped reading. He was talking about contracts, but I have come to think he was talking about people too. Everyone at that table had a page 4. Sharon's was a mother buried in a borrowed dress. Brittany's was a wall she did not know she was building. Aaron's was a boy who would rather agree than read. Mine was a woman so afraid of being left alone by the last person she had that she nearly signed herself away to keep him smiling. I did not stop reading at page 4. Not on the paper and not on the people. That is the only thing I did right, and it turned out to be enough.